Okay, so what is addiction? You know, this course is called Drug Use and Addiction. And part of the issue with that term is that it's pejorative, right? I mean, the idea that somebody's addicted to a substance, that's a pretty negative, connotation associated with that, particular term. So there has been an effort to switch addiction, the term addiction, to what we refer to now as dependence, and I'll mention this on a subsequent slide. But let's define addiction. Addiction is what people know it as, and they often refer to themselves as addicted to a particular substance. And just to give you a little idea of the difficulty of definition, this is a definition, a serious attempt at a definition by Berglass and Schaefer from 1984. Certain individuals use certain substances in certain ways, thought at certain times to be unacceptable, right, by certain other individuals, for reasons that are both certain and uncertain. Okay, so it really does show you when I introduce, for example, the graph from the federal government describing the use of illicit substances, but then you point out how much cigarettes, how large a population is actually using cigarettes, and it dwarfs the use of these illegal substances. It starts to make you wonder because of some of the issues that we will use to define a substance as a drug that has the potential for abuse or dependence, right? So to be a little more specific than this Berglass and Schaefer definition of addiction, we can talk about certain behavioral responses or activities that are related to a particular drug when people become addicted to it. So those who are addicted to a substance tend to show what we refer to as physical dependence, right? This means that if they don't get the substance, they experience what we refer to as a withdrawal syndrome. They feel lousy. They feel miserable. And this severe withdrawal, to some extent, is thought to help maintain the persistent use, right? There's compulsive use of the drug, right? Is also a characteristic of a person who is addicted to a particular substance. The addict will complain that, will actually report that they are craving the substance. They need to have the substance. They think about it all the time. They're constantly sort of dwelling on, ideas on how to get more, obtain more of the substance and use it. And if they, are successful in, temporarily, pulling back and using less of it, they will relapse later. They will go through these periods of remission, perhaps, often with counseling assistance, but then they will relapse and go back to use of the drug. So they show what we refer to as compulsive use. And finally, they show persistent use. This is despite significant social consequences of continued use of this substance, legal consequences, consequences in terms of family relationships, in terms of employment opportunities. Regardless of all these oftentimes horrifically negative consequences of continued use, they still persist. So another definition that probably is more applicable and a little bit more helpful is, addiction is defined as a behavioral pattern of drug use, characterized by overwhelming involvement with the use of a drug, the securing of its supply, and a high tendency to relapse after withdrawal.